My father slammed his fist against the wall so hard that a picture frame cracked and fell. The sound echoed through the living room like a warning shot, loud, violent, final. My mother flinched. My younger brother looked away. But me? I just stood there. I'm not doing this anymore, I said, my voice low, steady. I'm done being the responsible one. His face turned a deep red, a cocktail of rage and disbelief. You selfish brat, he spat. Everything we've done for you, and now this? Everything they'd done for me? You mean like expecting me to work 2 part-time jobs at 16 while my brother got to focus on school? Or when they guilted me into co-signing his first car loan, which he wrecked a month later and never paid off? Or how I put off college for 2 years so I could help pay off their mortgage while they sent him on a gap year to Europe? Yeah. Thanks, Dad. I read it. I used to be the golden child, the one who got straight A's, who never broke curfew, who picked up after everyone else's mess. I thought responsibility was a badge of honor. Turns out, in my family, it was just a leash. Have you ever said, no, for the first time, and watched everyone act like you'd burn the house down? Like your boundaries were a personal betrayal? That was me last month. My brother rear-ended someone while texting and driving. No insurance. No savings. But guess what? Dad called me. Not him. Me. You have a good job, he said. It's time to step up for your family. And when I said no, boom. That fist hit the wall. I think what shocked them most wasn't just that I refused, but that I didn't flinch. I didn't backpedal. I didn't apologize. I meant it. I still do. They didn't just want my help. They expected my sacrifice. For years I gave it willingly. Quietly. But something inside me snapped that night, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the bad guy for walking away. If you've ever been the one who holds it all together while everyone else falls apart, this story's for you. Welcome to HD Reddit Stories. If you've ever been gaslit by your own family for daring to protect your peace, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Because sometimes, the strongest thing you can say is no, and mean it. I was 8 the first time I realized that in my family, love came with conditions, and mine was to be the one who fixed everything. That year, my little brother Mason broke our neighbor's window with a baseball. My dad was furious. Mom cried. And while Mason sniffled and said sorry, it was me they looked at. Go apologize to Mrs. Kincaid, Dad ordered. Tell her we'll pay for the damage. But I didn't do it, I said. Don't backtalk, he snapped. You're the older one. Be an example. So I went. And I paid, first with words I didn't mean, then, a few weeks later, with my saved-up birthday money for a toy I never got. That moment was the template for the next 2 decades. Mason and I weren't even that far apart in age, just 2 years. But from the very start, he got to be the baby of the house. Sensitive. Not built for pressure, my mom used to say. So instead of toughening him up, they softened the world around him, and toughened me up to carry the rest. By middle school, I was doing both our chores. By high school, I was tutoring him at night after working at the grocery store. Every time he failed, I got the lecture. Why didn't you help him more? And when I succeeded, the praise always came with a warning. Don't get arrogant. He's just different from you. When Dad lost his job during my senior year, it was me who deferred college. I'd just gotten into a good state school on scholarship, but the family needed help. I worked 2 jobs, warehouse in the day, delivery driver at night, and every cent went to bills, groceries, and yes, Mason's new laptop. So he wouldn't fall behind. He fell behind anyway. Always. And I kept picking up the slack. At 24, I finally made it into my field, marketing, after clawing my way through online classes and late-night study sessions. I landed a decent job, moved into a small apartment, and finally thought I'd carved out something for myself. But Mason was still Mason. He'd dropped out of 3 community colleges by then, worked and quit at least 5 jobs, and still managed to complain that life's just harder for some people. Harder? He had never paid rent. Never done taxes without my help. Never once sat in a hospital waiting room alone while Mom got her hip surgery, and I stayed up 48 hours straight balancing her meds and my deadlines. Still, my parents expected me to do more. When Mason wrecked his car last month, the call came at 10:14 p.m. We need you to come to the house. Dad said. No, I said. Whatever this is, just tell me now. It's about your brother. I exhaled. Of course it was. He rear-ended someone, Dad continued. He was texting. The car's totaled. No insurance. I paused. Is he okay? A few bruises. He's fine. But we need to figure this out. We? I repeated. There was a silence. Then, you have the means, son. You've always stepped up. Don't let us down now. That line, don't let us down, that's what broke me. Because I had let myself down 1,000 times over to meet their expectations. That weekend, they invited me over. Said they wanted to talk things through. I showed up, knowing it would be a war zone. Dinner was on the table, but no one ate. The air was thick with rehearsed speeches. Dad cleared his throat. We've always trusted you to lead, son. That's not an easy role, but you've handled it well. Until now, Mom added, folding her hands tightly. I didn't say a word. Mason was silent too, staring at the table like he wasn't even there. Dad leaned forward. We need you to cover the car repair. And maybe a small loan for the other driver's damages. A small loan? I said. What about him? I pointed at Mason. Is he going to pay it back? Or am I just a bank again? You're his brother, Mom said sharply. Exactly, I snapped. Not his wallet. Not his life raft. That's when Dad stood up, pushed his chair so hard it scraped the tile, and slammed his fist into the wall. The drywall cracked beneath his knuckles. You don't talk to your mother like that, he yelled. I didn't flinch. You think you're better than us because you've got a job and a little apartment? You think that makes you too good for family? No, I said. But it does mean I finally know my worth. And it's not defined by how much I can give until I'm empty. The rest of the night was a blur of shouting, guilt-tripping, and emotional manipulation. When I left, Mason followed me to my car. He didn't say sorry. Didn't offer to fix what he broke. Instead, he said, You've changed. I looked at him and replied, No. I just stopped lying about what I'm willing to endure. They stopped calling after that. At least for a few days. Then came the texts. Mom, I raised you better than this. Dad, you've broken this family's heart. Mason, you just abandoned us when we needed you most. Each message dug at a different wound, but I didn't respond. I cried though. Alone. On my kitchen floor. Because saying no doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. But I needed the pain. I needed the silence. I needed the space to remember who I was before I became their safety net. In the following days, I started to piece things together. Old documents. Transfer receipts. Forgotten Venmo history. I did the math. Over the past 7 years, I had given my family more than $62,000. Rent support. Grocery payments. Loan bailouts. Tuition for classes Mason never finished. Medical bills. A surprise anniversary trip for my parents that Mason took credit for. And now, they wanted more. That was when something shifted in me. This wasn't just about saying no. It was about taking my power back. A few weeks after the explosion at dinner, I was still trying to process everything. The silence from my family had morphed into social media jabs and passive-aggressive messages from distant relatives. People I hadn't spoken to in years now felt entitled to weigh in. I heard you abandoned your parents after all they did for you. Wow, big job means big ego, huh? Don't forget who raised you. I didn't reply. I didn't post. I didn't explain. But I kept the receipts. Every single one. Bank transfers. Cash App logs. Emails confirming tuition payments. Screenshots of messages from my dad asking for just a little help this month. Or, we'll pay you back soon. Spoiler alert, they never did. It wasn't revenge I wanted. It was clarity. I needed to make sure that if I walked away for good, I did so with the truth on my side. So, I began organizing it all, every dollar, every promise, every guilt trip. It started as a spreadsheet but quickly evolved into something more. A timeline. A pattern. A full story of emotional and financial exploitation masked as family responsibility. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. A student loan in my name. One I never took out. I co-signed a loan for Mason years ago so he could take some online courses. But I distinctly remember backing out of the second one. I never signed anything. Or so I thought. I requested the loan documents. They were digital, but someone had e-signed using my name. The email address used was a burner. The IP address? Linked to my parents' home. I couldn't prove who did it, but I didn't need to. I'd seen enough. They weren't just taking advantage of me. They were forging things to keep doing it. That's when I contacted a lawyer. I wasn't planning to sue, not yet. I just wanted legal clarity. Was I responsible for these loans? What were my options if my family kept pressuring me? The lawyer, Samantha, was patient, precise, and probably the first person in months who didn't make me feel insane. "These are not enforceable if your signature was forged," she said. "But more importantly, if you want to formally distance yourself from your family financially, we can start drawing boundaries on paper. No more informal loans. No more backdoor responsibilities." She helped me draft 2 letters. One was a notice of financial disassociation, a legal document making it clear that I was no longer financially connected or responsible for any debts, damages, or ongoing expenses related to my parents or my brother. It wasn't a lawsuit, but it was a declaration. The second was more personal, a demand letter to Mason for repayment of $17,435. The sum of the loans and expenses I could prove were directly tied to him and unpaid. I sent both via certified mail. 2 days later, my phone exploded. "What is this?" Dad texted. "Mom, after everything we've done, you're threatening your own brother?" Mason, of course, called me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail sobbing, saying he was being harassed by debt collectors now, and I had ruined his credit. I hadn't. But I had reported the fraudulent loan to the credit bureau. That weekend, things escalated. My cousin sent me a screenshot from Facebook. My mother had posted a long, dramatic status about how some children forget where they came from, and how success makes you heartless. The comments were a circus of sympathy and judgment. Friends of the family I barely remembered were commenting things like, "Wow, I didn't know he was like that. Sounds like he needs to be humbled." But then, something unexpected happened. People started asking questions. One commenter, my high school friend Lara, wrote, "Didn't he pay for Mason's first car? And your anniversary trip?" Another added, "Wasn't he the one who helped you refinance your house?" The tide shifted. And I decided to make my move. Not with more shouting. Not with revenge. With receipts. I created a blog post. I didn't name names. I didn't throw insults. I told a story of a person who was always the responsible one, who carried the weight of a family on their back, who gave until it hurt, and then one day decided to stop bleeding for people who called it love. I included anonymized screenshots of messages, bank records with sensitive details redacted, quotes from the legal documents. I ended the post with one sentence: "Being responsible doesn't mean being a doormat." I shared the blog post on my own page. Quietly. No fanfare. It went viral within 48 hours. Turns out, there are a lot of people like me. Messages poured in. From strangers. From coworkers. Even from distant relatives who said, "I always felt like your parents were too hard on you. I'm glad you spoke up." And then, the silence. For days, my family didn't say a word. No calls. No texts. No Facebook rants. I thought maybe it was over. Until one evening, I came home to find an envelope taped to my door. Inside was a single sheet of paper in my father's handwriting. "You've made your point. Just know that you've burned every bridge. There's no coming back." I stood there on my porch, rereading it, waiting for the guilt to crawl back in. It didn't. Because I wasn't trying to come back. This wasn't about revenge. It was about liberation. The day I received my promotion, I didn't tell anyone. No celebratory post. No champagne selfies. Just a quiet evening with takeout and the sound of my own breath, steady and unburdened. I'd been promoted to director of strategy at my firm, a position I'd worked nearly a decade to reach. The pay bump was generous, sure. But the peace? That was priceless. A few months had passed since my family's last message, the handwritten note from my father, declaring I'd burned every bridge. I kept it folded in my nightstand, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Not of what I lost, but but of what I chose to walk away from. Freedom, I learned, rarely comes wrapped in applause. Sometimes it arrives in silence, in solitude, in the strange calm of nobody asking you for anything. I moved into a new place shortly after. Not extravagant, but beautiful in its simplicity, sunlight across hardwood floors, a view of the city skyline, walls that held no history. I painted them myself, listening to old records and humming along. It felt like reclaiming something I never even realized had been taken. My blog, unexpectedly, became a haven. What started as one anonymous post turned into a growing archive of reflections on boundary setting, financial abuse in families, and emotional resilience. Thousands read. Hundreds messaged. Some cried with me through their words. Some confessed they'd been silently enduring the same weight I carried for years. Then came the podcast requests. The think pieces? Even a small publishing deal. I turned them all down at first. I wasn't trying to be anyone's hero. But eventually, I said yes to one interview, a quiet conversation on a show about adult children breaking cycles. It wasn't about my family, it was about healing. And for the first time, I heard myself speak with no tremor, no apology. The host asked, "What would you say to someone afraid to walk away?" I thought for a moment and replied, "If your presence only matters when you're useful, that's not love. That's labor." The episode went viral. Again. And then, something I didn't expect happened. A letter arrived in my office mailbox. No return address. No handwriting. Just typed on plain white paper. "I saw your interview. I didn't realize how much I hurt you. I thought I was protecting one child, but I was sacrificing the other. I'm sorry I let you believe your worth was in what you could do for us. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know, I see it now." No name. But I knew it was my mother. I didn't cry. I didn't rush to respond. I folded the letter gently and placed it next to my father's in the drawer. One filled with finality. One with quiet remorse. It was enough. Not for reconciliation. But for peace. Some stories don't end with reunions. They end with acceptance. I saw Mason once, about a year after everything unfolded. It was at a grocery store, of all places. He was thinner. A little gaunt. He looked at me like he expected a fight, or maybe a lecture. But I just nodded. He didn't nod back. That was okay. We were different people now. Or maybe, I was finally just me. Later that night, I went back to my apartment and lit a candle for myself. Not a ritual, not for grief, just a moment of stillness. I poured a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and began writing again. This time, it wasn't a story of survival. It was a story of growth. Because that's the real ending, isn't it? Not when they apologize. Not when they finally see you. But when you stop needing them to. I thought I needed justice. I thought I needed them to beg, to understand, to weep for what they did. But in truth, I just needed to know I could build a life outside their shadow. And I did. If there's one truth I've learned through all of this, it's that being the responsible one can be the loneliest role in a family. You become the one who holds everything together. The fixer. The silent absorber of everyone's chaos. You're praised when you're useful and guilt-tripped when you're not. They call it love, but what they really mean is convenience. And the worst part? You don't even realize it, because it's disguised as duty, pride, even affection. But here's what no one tells you: responsibility without reciprocity isn't noble. It's exploitation. When I finally stepped back from my family, people acted like I had turned into a monster. How could I cut off my own blood? How could I demand boundaries from people who raised me? It took me a long time to understand. Not every role you're given is one you have to keep playing forever. I spent most of my life thinking that love meant sacrifice. That being a good son meant never saying no. That strength meant silence. I was wrong. Love is not measured by how much you can endure for someone else. Love is also saying, "I can't give you this. And I won't destroy myself trying." If you're reading this and you've been the responsible one, let me say something clearly. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cruel for setting boundaries. You are not heartless for walking away from people who only valued what you gave, not who you are. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to stop being their safety net. You are allowed to break the cycle. Because families don't break when someone walks away. They break when one person is expected to carry what should have been shared all along. And if you've been that person, carrying everyone's mistakes, finances, emotions, disappointments, let this be your permission slip to let go. Not with hate. Not with bitterness. But with clarity. Let go of the guilt. Let go of the performative responsibility. Let go of the hope that they'll suddenly change. They might never change. But you can. You can build something new. It won't be easy. You'll doubt yourself. You'll grieve the version of your family you thought you had. But you'll also breathe easier. Sleep better. Speak softer to yourself. You'll learn what real love feels like, the kind that doesn't ask you to shrink or bleed. And maybe one day, like me, you'll look back, not with regret, but with quiet pride, and say, I chose myself. And that was enough.